Hello, and welcome to our first stream of day 2 of Panel Spiel. This Panel Spiel online talk is called Giving Great Feedback, How to Be a Top Quality Playtester, and we have Jonathan Jaffer and Caitlin Green with us. I'm Heather Newton. I'll be your host for this stream, and Daria Sebi will be our host for the after-stream Q&A. So let me introduce our guests, and then I'll go on to a little bit of housekeeping, and we'll get right into the presentation. Jonathan is a game designer and puzzle constructor in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He is the creator of the Holiday Hijinks series of escape room games, as well as a family strategy games, and produces a daily YouTube series on puzzle solving. And outside of gaming, he is a software developer and has authored several books on jQuery JavaScript library. Caitlin has worked independently as a developer, crowdfunder, and publisher for over 10 years. She has also written extensively about ethical crowdfunding for publishing for Doomsday Robots, Stonemeyer blog, and now Cozy Crowdfunding. You will need a free backstage pass if you'd like to join the Q&A after the live stream. After the stream, sign up at protospiel.online/panelspiel. Once you have your pass, visit protospiel.online panelspiel-discord to pair your Discord username with your pass and get access to the Panel Spiel in Discord. I am very excited to have these two great game designers, community members here to talk to us about how to be a great playtester, because playtesting is a skill that you can get better at. The first time you playtest, it's not going to be the very best time that you've given or received feedback. But we're gonna focus this talk, as I understand it, on giving the feedback from the playtester seat, and maybe one day we can focus more on the receiving feedback, because both of those things are a little bit different and have a different set of skills. But thank you both so much for joining us. I'm gonna put you full screen to say hello, and I'm going to slide backstage, and I'll be back at the end to help everybody kind of move into the Q&A. So thanks so much, and we'll see you on the other side.
So Jonathan, you want to go ahead and start the slide? Because our hello is inside of our slides.
There we go.
So, as Heather just said, and thank you, Heather, our talk today is giving great feedback. Our panel, looking very forward to your questions afterwards. So we're going to do our best to manage our time so we can get through our whole panel. First, I just want to say thank you very much to Protospiel Online and Panelspiel Online for inviting me to participate. It's with great humility that I accept the invitation, and I'm hoping that I can benefit some playtesters out there.
Yeah, I think I can just echo that and say I'm very excited that we are kind of branching out from just the peer-to-peer informal conversations that we have regularly to starting to collect a little bit more of a library of information that hopefully can help people who are new to our community get on board and get the most out of what playtesting can offer from both perspectives. So we got a great intro already from Heather, and I'll just elaborate a little bit. I have published a number of games, most of which are puzzle-solving cooperative games, the escape room format, but a handful of other traditional family strategy type games. And I am serving as a developer for games that other people have designed. So that's a fairly new development for me, and something that is making me think even more about playtesting feedback.
And as Jonathan just mentioned, we got a great intro earlier. I am starting a new publishing company, People First Publishing. So that is getting off the ground now. But principally, most of my work in this space has been in development, which means I get to playtest a lot. And I think that that a lot of publishers, if you're watching this, you're missing a great opportunity to meet wonderful people and see some great designs by going to events like Protospiel Online or this event. and not just waiting for the designs to come to you. It's really fun to go to them, and I've benefited tremendously from getting to playtest in these spaces. So looking forward to doing more of that. So our goal today is not only to tell you like why playtesting is important. I mean, if you're here, you probably have a sense of like why playtesting might be important to you. But we're also going to give you, we're just going to share you with like our top 5 tips. Basically, we're going to do one of those videos, top 5 tips for giving great feedback. And because not everything fits in a tip format, we're also going to be talking about some of the common playtesting challenges that come up. From the perspective of being a playtester, we're not really going to talk so much about like what it's like receiving feedback. Like they said, that's a different discussion, but really about what kind of challenges come up when trying to give feedback to somebody else.
Yeah, we had quite a bit of discussion about who our audience should be for this discussion. And normally when I think about giving feedback, I am thinking from the perspective of gatherings of designers like we normally see in a protospiel, most commonly see in a protospiel environment where people are giving peer feedback. But we realized that we had a lot to say that was applicable to everyone. So our audience is everyone, which means that we are going to be focused, as Heather mentioned, on the playtester and not the person receiving that feedback. So we are going to structure this conversation in 3 parts. First, we're going to give some motivation about why we're going to do this at all. And then we're going to give more targeted ideas for how you can get better at this important skill. And then we will have a little bit more of a free-form discussion on some things that come up during these play tests that we need to confront when the time comes. So first off, we are going to talk about why you might want to be a playtester, especially for people who may never have done this before and might just be interested in this side of the hobby. Maybe you're a game player and have never really seen the design process and want to get into it. And maybe it's feeling a little intimidating. So we'll talk about why you might want to do that.
So thank you. So playtesting, so we got this set up, and we kind of took all our feedback, which was like a bunch of notes, and said, hey, how can we, what are the 3 common elements? And you're going to hear that in our playtesting feedback guidance as well. So we took all our notes about what we want to talk about. We said, hey, let's break these into some categories and talk about them. First of all, playtesting personal experiences. We thought that us sharing with you things that matter to us individually and personally would be a great way to start this. So for me specifically, playtesting played a huge role in my, frankly, it made a big difference in my life. Back in 2009, right after my mother died, I was looking for community, and I had never designed a game or anything like that. I liked board games. My board game experience probably was limited to maybe Catan and a little bit beyond that by 2009. I think I played Agricola, you know what I mean? So anyway, but I saw a board game design group that was advertised to me on Meetup while I was living in Dallas. And so I thought, what the heck, I'll go ahead and go, right? It was there that I met Brian Pope, who later went on to found Arcane Wonders. It was at his house, and that community made me feel so included and important. And I didn't know what I was doing, but they really taught me some fundamentals that I keep to this very day about how to play test. And they kept expressing, more importantly to me, it's like, just tell us how you feel. That's all we care about. You don't have to be great. Just tell us how you feel. And it really made me feel like my voice mattered, that my presence mattered, that people liked me being there. I mean, frankly, we all love it when playtesters playtest their games, but I didn't know that. I just felt included. It was great. So, but that was a beautiful experience where I got to be lifted up during a playtest. So,
Yeah, I think for me, the playtesting started becoming important to me. I realized playtesting was becoming important to me as our local in-person design group, Grubs, started getting off the ground, because I can kind of track my personal growth alongside my game designer growth in a lot of ways, as I joined that experience really feeling like this was just something I was going to experiment with, and growing that into, hey, I think I can contribute to other people's success, and then starting to the ongoing journey of overcoming some imposter syndrome and really thinking, hey, I want to actively seek out opportunities to lift up other people in these environments. And I can see people coming in who were like me 10, 15 years ago coming into this group, and I can establish relationships with them in a way that is more mentorship while still being a mentee to others.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that idea of contributing to other people, because something that happened for me specifically was I was at a playtest years ago at I think it might have actually been a Protospill. No, it was another online design group we were with. But a particular designer I was working with had a really, really, really bad playtest. Like it just, everything had gone wrong. He gotten terrible amount of feedback. And so I remember staying afterwards with him and just let him like express his emotions, express his feelings. You know, sometimes it's hard getting feedback, and we can talk about that another time. But I was able to say, hey, let's look at this with some fresh eyes. Let's take all that stuff, put them aside. Let's look and see, like, what is your game's real core? What is it trying to be here? And we talked for like an hour afterwards, just the two of us, about what might we do to help uplift the experience of the game. He told me after that night that he had that it had gone so badly he was going to quit game design. Like, he just felt so terrible. But after talking to me and us getting to uplift each other, that he actually stuck around, and he went on to make $500,000 in that game on Kickstarter. So congratulations to him. But yeah, it's a great opportunity to not only be uplifted like I was when I started, but also to uplift others as well. And I think one of the best things about playtesting.
It's also a great opportunity to develop your introspection skills, um, because, yeah, knowing yourself, it goes a long way toward your relationships with others. And as an example, in a recent Protospiel Michigan, I was in a test where I was frustrated during the game, and I was frustrated about the gameplay, not about a design problem. And as the as the game wrapped up, I had to sit there and think, what impression did I give to people, to the designer in particular, and needed to have a conversation with him about, hey, this is how I probably presented. Here is how I was feeling, and I don't want you to take the wrong impression from how I expressed this. So, and that was a great conversation. We ended up talking for a long time about the difference between the outward exhibition of our feelings and how what we're feeling inside, and being able to put that into words, I think, is a skill that carries over out of the game field into other aspects of life.
Absolutely. And because we're kind of bleeding categories here, that's fine. Because I agree with you. I think that, like, it's good. You talked about how it builds introspection. I find that, like, people, when they're playtesting, when I'm playtesting, when people playtest in my games, it's an experience of collaborative work where you are sharing vulnerability. And I think that really builds community between each other. There's a certain element of, like, putting yourself out there, whether it be that you're putting your game out there, or honestly, when you share with people how you feel about something, you're opening yourself up to criticism. You're opening yourself up to be wrong, if you know what I mean. So, like, it's a great opportunity to share vulnerability. And when people can do that respectfully and with proper consent with one another, as far as what they're sharing and what they're being asked to share, it really does foster a strong sense of community that I think is one of the things that, like, attaches us so much to each other. Both, you know, when we're playtesting, we want to playtest again, and we want to get with more people, and we want to meet others. It's because it is such a great opportunity to build up a sense of like I said, community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just more on the practical application idea, I think that game design and playtesting in general um, also affords us an expansion of our vocabulary, by which I mean not just, hey, I know what worker placement means now, but the way that we can reframe problems in our lives and use that as a tool. So, for example, I think when I'm playtesting, I think a lot about what are the incentives this game is offering me to succeed, and do they align with what's fun? And that can be applied to what incentives does my company's HR policies offer for taking vacation and when? And is that good for the well-being of the person? Is that good for the company? Is that good for hiring people? So I think and that's a way of thinking about that isn't necessarily novel, but it lets you put things into words that might be difficult to express unless you have the practice.
Exactly. And I'll finish off for my part with this. Giving feedback and playtesting and giving feedback is a very useful life skill. Understanding how to do it both with grace, with humility, and of course, and we're going to talk about this a lot, with consent of the other person, is a wonderful tool that you will use, frankly, in most elements of your life, especially if you're dealing with any sort of conflict resolution. So I find it was a great opportunity to learn those skills.
Yes. Are we so you're done with this slide, Caitlin?
Yeah, if
I've
you are.
lost track of all the amazing things I
No
want to
problem. I
say.
can do
So we'll move
no
on.
problem.
Yeah, so we're going to move on to the next big section then. And just a note as we do this, feel free to post any questions or comments in the chat. We probably won't notice many of them until we get toward the end, but we'd love to hear from you as well. But we're going to move into the second section, which are going to be our kind of structured five what we identified as our five major tips that we can give to new playtesters or established designers who are looking to hone their craft in playtesting their own games and other people's games.
Jonathan, I can imagine later on when people are watching this on YouTube or Twitch, they'll just skip and go, "Oh, it's this minute mark. We can look at the
That's
tips."
right.
Okay, so number one we identified was, and these are kind of in a little bit of a sequential order on purpose. Identify the designer's goals for the game. So this means, like, when you sit down to playtest someone else's game, it's really, really, really important to understand what the designer's goal for the game is. Are they going to play this game with their family or with their friends on their own, and they're just looking for a good time and kind of want to refine it? Or are they literally about to go self-publish the game themselves? They're about to spend, thousands on art, and they're about to go live with it or try to go live with it. Like, understanding these different goals is really important. It's going to tailor your feedback. And I think Jonathan and I are going to rapid fire back and forth in this. Continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're going to market, what market is another thing. So is this going to be something that you're trying to get Hasbro to publish, or is this something that you're trying to get into hobby game stores, or is this something you're trying to get into a museum gift shop? Or these are all valid paths that drastically change what feedback should be like.
Exactly. And we should talk about what that feedback difference is then, because understanding the goals and then knowing how to give feedback are two different things. So let's talk about the first one. We're playing for fun. I'm making a game, and the designers, and I'm saying to my playtesters, "Oh, this is just to play with my family." Jonathan, what kind of feedback do you think I'm looking for with that? Do you think I'm looking to be raked over the coals about, my game isn't perfectly balanced?
I think so the first thing that comes to mind is that I tend to harp on probably too much about making games accessible to people and easy to learn. And this is as I'm thinking about this with fresh eyes, normally I'd say, okay, this is for friends and family, so this is probably a lighter weight game, which makes it very important to make the rules as simple as possible. And now I'm thinking, well, yes, if it's a published game with a market for family friendly, that is true. If it is for your friends and family and you are the one teaching the game to your friends and family, then it can actually support a lot. We can ignore a lot of those things that I would normally identify as problems. That's not helpful feedback.
Mhm.
That I would focus far more on what are the things that you find cool about this game and how can you make your friends and family excited about that cool thing?
Love that. Love that. So, and conversely, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. You are going to self-publish a game, not even pitch to publisher. You're going to go out there. You're going to spend your own money on making a game. I'm gonna take this, feel this one. It's because this one I feel very strongly about. It's very tempting a lot of times with playtesting to tell someone that if you don't have anything good to say about it, you don't say anything at all, and that's not great. We're gonna get more into that later. But in this exact moment, this person is you the playtester might be the only person in the designer's life who has told them, "Whoa, do not spend a bunch of money on this game. Like it needs some work. Like we're gonna have some trouble." So think about it that way. That if you are in that situation where someone's about to put some real vested interest on the line there, your feedback is just that much more important to be like, "Hey, there's some issues here that I see," or, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to play it myself." Yeah, you give the feedback. You say, make sure you give me your Kickstarter link afterwards, right? So there's an opportunity there to say, but understand like the consequence of your feedback has so much more gravity in that situation. And so it's important that we tailor feedback accordingly. And that is when you might be the most brutal. That is when you might be have the most challenging things to say, because you know someone's financial stake is on the line.
Yes, absolutely. And to an extreme, we're going to talk a little bit more about framing your feedback later. But that knowing that goal is self-publishing allows you to say things that are critical in a way that is not mean-spirited, where you can say not this game is bad. Yeah, that's not helpful feedback, but saying I see problems with this game reaching the market that you are trying to reach, and you either need to change things about I feel you either need to change things about the game or you need to change your expectations of what that market is.
That's a great one.
I really want to highlight what Jack just said as well, because that's a good point that we weren't really talking about, was not just how does the game work, but things about efficiency of components matter hugely when you're talking about self-publishing, because
Mhm.
every card costs you money and you care about that much less if you're pitching to a publisher.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and to the middle ground is I'm going to pitch this to a publisher. Understand that when you're pitching to a publisher, a lot of things can change. So it's your feedback is going to be more focused around really honestly what the designer is looking to find out for the playtest. There aren't a lot of stakes either way, if that makes sense. It's more about what the playtester's goals are, and that leads into our next tip.
Yeah. So, in addition to figuring out what the goals are for the game in the long term, that is, it's what what the game should feel like, what the target market is. Um, you also want to know what the goals are for this specific playtest. Where is this game in development? Is this a brand new idea? Is this something that has been sold to a publisher and it is just going through refinement and being the best that it can be? Those change a lot about what you might say.
Yeah, I might be showing a game and playtesting a game, and I'm specifically testing like this one mechanic. And I'll tell my playtesters up front, my goal for this playtest is to test this one mechanic. Now, not all designers are going to do that, so it's important as a playtester to say, hey, before we get going, like, what are you trying to get out of this? What do you want to know? And a lot of times, a lot of designers will be like, I don't know, was it fun? You know, but sometimes they're going to have like a specific thing they're looking for. So if I tell you, or I've identified it, and I'm a designer and I've identified that I'm looking for this mechanic, you you need to get consent from me before you talk about my graphic design. Does that make sense? Like that's not what I'm testing, and you're going to distract the conversation. And maybe you have
Mhm.
some great feedback on my graphic design. Just ask me, hey, I know this isn't what you asked for, but can I share with some about your graphic design? I'll be like, yes, but only after you tell me what I want to know first.
Yes, yeah, yes, but only after everyone else has a chance to talk
Yes, that's
is
right
the other
too.
part of that.
Hmm.
Because, like you said, it's the distraction that's often, well, it's one of the major issues with that.
It is. Time management's very hard.
um, yeah, and the goals. So yeah, since we're talking about this from a playtester standpoint, I think it's a very good point you raised that the designer won't always tell you these things up front. That's why these are identify. So I think it's good to come prepared with some questions that you I have some questions that I will ask, not every time, but when things are not obvious to me, to make sure that things are framed correctly. One is, how do you want your players to feel? And I am careful when I ask that to emphasize that um, having fun is not a very useful answer to this. I wanted, and I give some examples. I say, do you want your players to feel um do you want your players to be laughing? Do you want your players to be feeling
Clever.
clever,
Yeah,
proud of themselves? Do you want them to feel powerful? Do you want them to learn a lesson? That kind of thing can help you focus on the right things to think about during the playtest.
absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, it's very important at the beginning of the playtest after you've kind of established like what their publishing goals are, what they intend to do with the game, and that kind of will set kind of the framing for it. Then say, hey, we're gonna have this playtest. What do you want to get out of it? And it could be that simple and that easy. Like, what are you looking for? And sometimes they truly don't know, and that's okay if they don't know. You can be wide ranging feedback, and maybe it will manifest during the game. But a lot of designers will have an idea of what they want to do, or at least you'll make them think about it. And it's a great way for you to focus on, okay, when I'm going to play test this, I might see these other things, but I know they're looking for this, so I'm going to really try to like hamper on this and focus in on this. So.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is one we're going to be coming back to as we get into the actual giving of the feedback as
Yep.
well. All right. So,
Yep.
moving on.
Oh, I'll take this one. All right. So our first three tips are all identify. They're telling you to go gather information before you open your mouth and tell someone what you think of their game. You're gathering information first. So this one is going to probably happen. It's a little more nuanced. It's going to happen kind of during the game. But it says identify what the game is trying to be, as opposed to what you want it to be. It can be very tempting as a playtester playing a game and being like, oh, it'd be so cool if it also did this, or if it went this way, or what if it was about space lasers? You know what I mean? The idea is that it can be very tempting to get excited, and that's honestly, we love that enthusiasm as designers, to see that enthusiasm from playtesters, but recognize also like what you think the game should be isn't necessarily what it is in front of you.
Yes. So that's, yeah, that is probably the most difficult lesson to learn as a playtester, or the most, maybe not to learn, but the most difficult lesson to put into play, because if you're not enjoying something, it's easy to think about, what would I change to make this something I would enjoy? Uh, but what would I change to make this enjoyable to the people who are supposed to enjoy this is more difficult. It's the which one is it? Empathy of putting yourself in someone else's shoes. I get my terms mixed up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be playing a party. I could be playing a party game, and I don't want to be thinking about how I'm going to layer a victory point system on top of it, right? And how that's going to work. That's not what the game's trying to be. It's trying to be a party game. Like, try to identify it. Similarly, if I'm playing a game that's meant to be a heavy strategy game, I shouldn't be thinking about how ultimately to add more comical elements to it, unless that is the goal of the game, if that's what the game's goal is. So I think that Gil Hova, one of my favorite people in the world, he talks about this with ludonarrative dissidence a lot, and I'm going to go into that. But the idea is like try to figure out what the game's trying to be, is in like what you can tell the designer wants to be. And if you don't know, oh gosh, please ask. Like,
Yes.
I'm playing this game. Is this a I can't tell. Is this a heavy strategy game you're trying to do, or are you trying to do like a light competitive? I can't tell based on what's going on. What do you want it to be? Who are you making this game for? If you can't figure it out, please ask. It helps so much in identifying what your feedback should be.
Yes, and we in number 1 we were talking about, we were really phrasing this as upfront. You need to know what the goal for this game is, but it's more than upfront. That's a good point. That come back to these things during if they're becoming muddied, if other playtesters are giving feedback that is opposed to this. A good way to reorient the discussion is to say, so just again, tell me, is that the kind of thing that you want to be making here? And are we being helpful? We goes a long way.
It does. So just in summary, these first 3 tips were all about kind of the onus on us. If we want to be better at giving feedback, we need to understand what we're giving feedback for. What are the publishing goals? What are the goals of the specific playtest? And what is this game trying to be, and who is it for? These are really important because they're going to shape our next tip.
Yes. Which is to talk about how the game makes you feel, not how to fix it. This is the hardest thing for many people, and especially for me. I have to actively work against this in every test. And we talked, I mean, you brought up the word consent. Again, you can have discussions about how to solve the problems if that is what the designer is asking for specifically. But even so, that is probably in most cases not as helpful as understanding the feelings, because if you have a good sense of how the players feel, you can think about solutions as a designer that you probably already have in your back pocket, that maybe you're trying to decide between ways things are working or not working.
As a designer, it can really bother me to hear people tell me how they want to fix a thing. They don't recognize the amount of time, effort, and energy I've already put into multiple different suggestions. It's very common that a designer will tell me, oh, you could just do this to fix it. I'm just like, yeah, I did that 6 weeks ago, and that led to this and led to this and here we are here, right? So in the end, like, I'm not saying that kind of feedback isn't useful, but the consent about it is important. If I ask you, hey, how would you fix that? Oh, engage that brain, put that critique on, and go all in on it. But what's more important in general on a playtest, and again, this is general feedback, but also, like, I think, like, one of the most important pieces of feedback is that you are going to express how you feel. And I'm going to give you a tip for how I do that. So when I'm playtesting a game, I often have I'm an extrovert, so maybe this doesn't apply to everybody, but I have a verbal monologue going on while I'm playing. So it's my turn. I'll say things like, okay, it's my turn. Based on what I can see in front of me, I think I want to do this. This is what I really want to accomplish in the game, is try to accomplish this. And yes, I'm giving away my strategy, but the idea is it's for the designer, right? Maybe the playtesters will use it against me, but whatever. I really want to accomplish this. And I think based on what I can see, the best way I can do that is probably by taking this action into this action, maybe. So I'm going to do this and go here and do this. Oh, a bad thing happened to me. Oh, that doesn't feel very good. Well, I hope I can still hit my goal. So I'm helping them understand, like, here's what I'm trying to do in the game. Here's how I think I'm going to do it. And here's how it makes me feel as I try to do it. And here's how it makes me feel when I get it, or here's how it makes me feel when I didn't reach it. So this kind of like constant narrative for me is very, very, yeah, thinking out loud. I think I just saw in the notes there. When you think out loud for your turns, it can be very, very helpful to the designer.
Yes, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about, I just want to say how I deal with this problem for myself. So I'm not even going to espouse this as the best way to approach this, but when I find myself in a playtest trying to come up with how would this change, and I realize midstream that this was not asked for, that doesn't make it invaluable. Invaluable in the sense of
Invalid. Invalid. Yeah.
not valuable.
Yeah.
It makes it it means that I need to what I will often do is I will say, I'm about to say what I would do if I were the designer of this game. And uh, and I'm not suggesting that you do this, but I will say, I think if I were doing this, I would have the turn order not have rounds and just keep going. Because when I am playing, I was frustrated that I had to wait longer before it was my turn or whatever it is. And then I'll say, so that's probably not the solution you want to implement. That's up to you. But that's how I can frame it in my head and get that out of my head without making it feel to me like I am imposing how you should do this thing. I'm saying how I would do this thing and being very clear that that is not the only solution, but also being clear about why I feel that why it made me feel that there should be a change.
There's a lot of like advice out there that talks about parity and feedback. Like when you give something good, you give something bad. I personally don't feel that. I think if I'm being vulnerable as a playtester and authentic, I should be talking about both my good experiences and my bad experiences as they happen. So again, not talking about fixing things, but it's like if I'm playing a game and I did something awesome and it feels good, I'm telling the person like, oh, that felt really good. I'm really glad I accomplished that. Or another counter example that be like, wait a second, you mean I don't get another turn? Maybe I didn't understand the rules. Oh, that feels terrible. Like that's a way that I'm contributing continuously to it, because frankly, parity and feedback is not good, doesn't exist. Some games you're just going to have a better time with, other games you're just not going to have a good time with, and they can be different for a different playtester. The important thing is they know how you feel, truly how you feel in the moment. And it can be difficult. You're not going to be able to always talk about how you feel. Someone else can be doing something on their turn, and I can have a feeling about it. And I'm not going to vocalize that necessarily during their turn, right? I'm going to wait for my turn to do it, or I'm going to do what's in the next step if Jonathan's ready to move on.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I wanted to say is that the how you feel, I felt good on this turn, I felt bad on this turn. As you get more experienced at the playtesting, you'll be able to say that this good feeling I have might not be good for your game. This bad feeling I have might be good for your game. And that goes back to who is the game for? What's the game trying to be?
Yeah, Eric Lang said that. Eric Lang says, more games need to make people feel bad.
Yes.
Okay. And that leads us to our fifth and final tip. And I think to be of anything else we've ever said, if you take nothing else away, take this one away, because I think it's going to be the most useful to you as you grow and develop as a playtester. Record your feedback as you play. We talked about giving feedback and saying out loud how we feel while we're playing, but it's very, very important to record it. I know when I'm playing in person, I see people with little logs and they're writing down how they feel, or they're writing down ideas as they go along. The cool thing about recording your feedback is you can say whatever you want. You can say you can be writing on your, like I write on a Google Doc basically, and I'll write, not only do I have like how I feel and I'll write that down, But I'll write, be like, oh man, I really wish this worked this way. Like that's when I get to make my little, that's when I get to feel like I'm giving good advice, about how to change the game, is in my little feedback. So that way, when I'm done with all my feedback, I can think about that and how I want to give my final feedback. But before I get into that, I'm gonna let Jonathan go. So.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say you should record your feedback as you play and not give that recording to the designer. Unless you have a personal relationship with that person where that's going to be okay. This is again your opportunity to just not worry about all these things we're talking about, because that's going to slow you down.
Mhm.
You're writing down anything that comes to mind so that when it comes time to give that feedback, you don't lose things that are important, and you can skip things that in retrospect, I'll often in the first turn, I'll write down something that that I have a concern about, and then it'll turn out in round 4 that, oh, that was there for a reason. I'm just not going to bother to talk about that.
That happens to me so much. I'll write down something that I think is a problem, and then by the end I'm like, oh, that wasn't a problem at all. I'm glad I didn't even say that. Like,
Right.
I'm really glad.
And
Yeah.
this goes hand in hand with, I don't think we have this as a separate thing, waiting until the appropriate time to give your feedback. So
Yeah.
once you have it, you can do that.
Yeah. During the playtest itself, we're enunciating our turns. We're giving a play-by-play as much as you are comfortable doing so, and we're talking about how the game makes us feel in the moment. But we're recording, though, basically, especially between turns, what we think about that. So we're expressing how we feel. We're writing what we think in a way. You know what I mean? So we're talking about like, what do we think about how that happened? It's this person's turn, and I'm really thinking about this, and I don't really like the way this is working. And boy, I'm seeing this problem come up over and over again. This is stuff that I'm writing. I'm not interrupting the playtest. I'm not stopping everything so that I can get my important opinion out about what I think should be done differently. Even if that's what was asked of me, I can wait till the end. I can wait until it's the appropriate time to give feedback to do that.
Yes, I think it is important to respect the designer's wishes about when feedback is provided, but in the absence of that, err on the side of after the fact, of
Yeah.
knowing it and doing it later, because when you're playtesting a game, the flow of the game and the pacing of the game is an important thing, an important factor in everything. It's maybe one of the most important factors. And interrupting the game halfway through to talk about some detail, unless that detail needs to be resolved in order for the playtest to continue, which can happen, it's probably more of a distraction than it is a help.
And while in our next section, we're going to talk about some of the live feedback. When I refer to live feedback, I'm talking about the end of the game. We're done, and we're doing live feedback with each other, where we're talking about our experience as a whole, as opposed to our individual experiences during the play. And during that live feedback is when you're going to be able to give kind of a summary of how you feel, or your general experience in the game, especially as it relates to what the game designer asked for. Having your notes is great because someone else can be talking and you can be summarizing. Be like, okay, what's coming up in my notes over and over again? What's something, if there's one thing I see in my notes, that if there's one thing I could fix that would make the game experience better for me, what would it be? And like kind of highlight those things, because usually when it comes time to give feedback, then you have a very refined position at that point. You have a very good idea of what you've seen over and over again. You don't have to beat it up. And generally you have a good idea of like, what's my main takeaway? Like, what's the one thing that I want them to understand from my experience from the game, regardless of what I said during it? Like, what's the takeaway here?
Excellent.
Yeah. So Jonathan says don't send your notes to people unless you have a good relationship with them. I always ask the designer at the end, I'm like, I have notes. Would you like them? Basically. And
I think
yeah.
that is fine. I guess what I'm saying there is allow yourself to be unedited as you record your feedback. And
Exactly.
one way to give yourself permission for that is to say, these are for me.
Yes, that's good. Yeah. And I haven't shared every note I've ever written. Okay. That's great. Okay. Let's let's hit the next section. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to move into our third section now, which is we have about 15 minutes left, so it's possible we won't get through all of these. And whatever we don't get to, we're going to move to the backstage after this. So this is structured as a we've sort of organized these challenges in order of our own priorities of what we thought was important to talk about, but they're not really sequenced. So we'll get to what we can here in this live environment and then talk about more of them later. So we'll move on to
addressing common playtesting challenges. Okay, one that comes up all the time. I'm a playtester, and I just listened to this designer give an enthusiastic explanation of the game, and I still have no idea what I'm doing. Like, Jonathan, how do you handle as a playtester if you don't understand the teach?
So first off, personally, this is the biggest hurdle to me in online environments versus in-person environments when playtesting. It is there are a lot of, for my learning style and for many people, having the tactile bits in front of you covers up so many sins in teaching a game. And so part of this is on the designer to get better about that teaching skill, and that's a whole separate presentation. But as the playtester who is attempting to understand the game, there are a couple tools that I use. One is being upfront that I don't think I get it yet, but it will be most helpful to me if we just move on with that understanding and you explain the things I'm doing wrong during the first turn so I can get things, so we can just get this rolling and I can learn as we go a little bit. That helps.
Exactly. For me, it's if I'm realizing I'm not understanding a teach, I'll be like, okay, I have to be honest, I don't really know what I'm doing, but let's keep going. How about this? I'll tell you what I want to accomplish, and you can help me learn how to accomplish it. So on each turn. So
And
move into it.
yes, exactly. And you can, again, as you're recording feedback and analyzing your feedback or analyzing what you wrote to give oral feedback, do some introspection on whether your lack of understanding was because you're not in the frame of mind to understand,
Which happens.
which
Yeah.
happens because the explanation was insufficient, or because the game made it difficult to understand what to do.
That's true too.
Because those are very different problems to solve, and it could be, and that depends on back to our beginning of what is this playtest for. So where is this game in development? If it's brand new, the teach isn't going to be refined.
Yeah.
And if
Stop playing to win. Stop playing to win. If you're like, I have to understand all the rules before I play, you're playing to win. Stop. If they ask you to play for win, then play to win. But otherwise, that's not really what the goal of the playtest is usually.
Yes. But if it's a late stage, then like you ask, have you gotten to the step of writing a detailed rule book yet? And is that what we need to be thinking about? That's something we didn't even talk about. That's a thing you could be testing. And again, that comes to, what is this playtest for?
Yep.
Is this playtest about the teach, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, true. All right, what if I'm not having fun? This happens most of the time for me. I don't like games. I swear sometimes I rely on play games. So anyway, what if I'm not having fun? Well, here's the first thing. Are you the target audience?
Yes.
Are you the one who should be having fun with this? And I have times I'll be playing a game. I'll be like, yeah, I mostly play like really heavy games in most of my life. That's mostly what I do. Like if I play games, I'm like playing Lacerda games. I'm having a great time with those. So, but that's not most of what's being play tested with me. So I have to, in my head, I have to take that. I'm like, okay, I'm probably personally not going to enjoy this game. How can I still contribute to it? And so, But sometimes if the game, I'm supposed to enjoy it and I'm not having fun with it, I should probably tell the designer how I feel like what I think is supposed to be fun and how the game's not hitting it for me. It's okay to tell the designer I'm not really enjoying myself.
Yes, and it's an opportunity to think about why are you not having fun, and not only like, so if you've determined that yes, you are supposed to be the target audience of this, um if you are going into the playtest with the mindset not of I'm trying to win or I'm trying to play a fun game, but I'm trying to improve this game,
Mhm.
not having fun is almost the best option because it means you have something that you can improve. But the other thing is to think about how you're expressing not having fun.
Mhm.
Saying there is a playtester I'm trying to mentor in our local group who has a tendency to simply express things as I'm not having fun. And that by itself, it is good to know, but it isn't helpful unless you're saying this specific thing is frustrating me. So
Yeah.
being more specific about that is huge. And is your expression of this interfering with the ability of the other play testers to have fun if the game was going to be fun?
Yeah. You want to do number 3? Go ahead.
Sure. Um, so what if I don't think I have anything useful to say in a playtest? Especially newer playtesters will run into this a lot. Or if there are personalities at the table that are, well, this ties in a little bit later, but if you think that maybe you think that the game is already fine, it's
Mhm.
already perfect, do you come up with some kind of feedback of something that you would change?
Mhm. This is one that I feel kind of strongly about, so I wanted Jonathan to go
Yeah,
first.
I just wanted
You
to ask
don't
that
have
question.
you
Yeah.
don't have to have anything to say at all. You really don't.
Yes.
Like I one of the things that annoys me sometimes as a designer is feeling like a playtester is like reaching, like they're wanting to contribute. They want so bad to contribute, so they're reaching for something like, oh, maybe this, and usually it's like I don't think that's anywhere near like where we're at. But I mean, frankly, I've play tested and designed games for many, many years, so I can kind of tell when a designer is doing that. But don't feel like you have to reach for something if it's not really obvious. If it didn't like hit your core and you're like, oh, this is the way I feel about this, it's probably not something that necessarily is you need to worry about. Like not all feedback is necessary to give in the moment. This is one of the reasons why you have things to write things down, right? It could very well be your feedback ends up being, honestly, I don't have a lot to say about it. It's if you have any specific questions for me, maybe I can answer those. But I personally, I'm good. Like, thank you for letting me play. So
I think that we cut this out of our top tips because we decided it was more for the designer than for the playtester. But I think this is a good time to highlight something that I'd like you to say that you brought up during our earlier discussions about the social contract between the
yeah,
designer and the playtester.
thank you for that. All right, yeah. So this is a complex topic. I'll see if I can boil it down in the very few minutes here. But in general, though, when you are playtesting a game with somebody else, and you are engaged in what I refer to as a social contract with that person. You are giving of your time as the playtester to somebody else who's going to utilize your labor and your work to improve their work, and you're going to do it for free, frankly. So how then does the playtester get paid, or receive that benefit for playtesting? A lot of times the way that we internalize that as playtesters is, well, they're going to listen to me. They're going to hear my feedback. They're going to make the game better because of something I said. And so you can feel like the only way you have any value or get paid, as it were, is if the designer like says, oh man, I love your feedback. That's great. You just made my game better. So when you feel like you don't have anything to say, or worse, if I'm not being heard, which is number 5, it can feel like a break in that. And so you will, I find designers doing this, they'll seek for something they can add to the game to feel like they can get that give and take social contract. So
Yeah, so I
yeah.
wanted you to bring that in here
Mhm.
because I think that applies if you don't feel like you have anything to say. I'm gonna say it's okay to say nothing because from the designer's perspective, they're getting value out of you being there, just
A butt in a seat.
your butt in a seat, your body language,
Mhm.
your overall tone is valuable even if you don't realize it. But if you don't feel like you have anything to say and you need to make you feel like you're contributing, you have permission to say something that maybe isn't actually of value. And I think that's over
Mm.
time, as you become more experienced, you will become more okay with not having anything to say. But I don't want to um, be critical of playtesters, especially newer playtesters, feeling like they need to come up with something that
Yeah.
I'm going to put that on the designer more to understand what to listen to.
Mhm. But Jonathan, what if I have, okay, so on the opposite side of that, what if I have this really, really, really good idea and oh my God, I've got to share it with you. Like it's going to change your whole game. You're going to make tons of money on Kickstarter.
um, okay, so we have a code word in that has developed in Grubs where I can't remember. This is probably something that wasn't just from one person, but we have a few shorthands that we say, and one is spaghetti, and that comes from throwing some spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. So that's when that is the way that we start talking about something that is maybe um unsolicited, but is but you're saying, I understand you're probably not going to use this. This is crazy. This is going to change everything about your game, but I just need to get it out there. And just by framing it that way, the other person can say, oh, that's interesting. And maybe they'll say, oh, that's awesome. And maybe they'll say, oh, cool, but you can move on.
All right, let's hit the next slide and maybe we can hit a few things there. So
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah.
let's go there.
Yeah. So we'll go over these in a little briefly, but then these are things that we can hit on more as
Mhm.
we get into the
The
next
Q&A, yeah, we're
portion here.
inspiring ideas. So let's talk about the first one. If the designer's acting defensive, this happens, unfortunately happens a little too often. Designers has created this baby and you're like mutilating it. You know? So they can be very defensive about it. For me in particular, the designer, if I'm seeing designers getting defensive, that's time to like pull back. It's time to go, okay, I need to reassess how I'm making the designer feel. Maybe take more of the notes and maybe say, can I send you some notes later so you can think about these? But at that point, like the designer has feelings that matter as well. They really do. And I have been in a situation where I thought my job was to like critique, and even the designer was getting defensive. And I feel like that's no longer a view that I have of this. Designers' feelings matter as well. And when they're getting defensive, in a way, they're kind of revoking consent a little bit about like what kind of feedback they want at that point. So.
And this kind of goes back to what they're trying to get out of the playtest. Sometimes, honestly, unfortunately for a lot of us, but honestly, the answer is they just want people to play their game, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we go, Jonathan, hit on number 3. What if another playtester isn't being heard?
Yes. I think this is primarily the job of the designer, but broadly it is the job of everyone to make sure that everyone is being heard. So the tools like just saying, hey, I think that Sarah has something to say.
Mhm.
When someone, because often when someone isn't being heard, that can be the designer isn't being receptive, but more often it's that someone else, another playtester, is dominating.
Yes, exactly. It really is. So, and I know they're gonna pull us off the Q&A in a moment. I feel like I'm about to get pulled with a cane, like yanked off the stage here. But I will say that, like, when we're talking about being heard, if you're listening to what the playtesters are saying, it's very helpful to be like, I really agreed with when Sarah said this, and then you can expound on it, as opposed to just stating it as if it's something that you just came up with on your own. And maybe you did come up with it independently, but if someone's already stated it, by you restating it, that fulfills that social contract too. It's like, hey, I hear you, even as another playtester. I want to make sure the designer also hears that our voices are united on this thing.
Yes.
Mhm.
And our last question is, what if things are going too long? Which they are. So we will get into that in our feedback session in the Q&A in the backstage.
I was laughing at that last slide, at that last point on the slide.
That was intentional.
All right, everybody. So we're not going to have time for questions, but I haven't seen very many in the chat. You've been holding them for being able to talk voice to voice about this. I think it's going to be probably a very fruitful conversation, because everybody who's spent a lot of time playtesting, you form opinions about stuff you've spent a lot of time doing. I think we're going to have a rich conversation in Q&A, and I'm looking forward to it. So if you are, I've got this slide up for you. If you are not in our Discord server yet with Panel Spiel access, if you're an alumni of Protospiel Online, you're not going to automatically have Panel Spiel access. It's a separate event that's happening in our server that you need to pair your registration and get your Discord account to see the Panel Spiel area. All right. So those two QR codes, if you grab them, those are the two places you need to go. First, get the pass, then unlock, then pair it with your Discord username. But and I'll be watching. I have view of you all coming in, and if I see anything, anybody registering and then they're not in Discord like right now, I'll keep an eye on it and try to email you.
Heather is always watching.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I just want to say thank you ton to Caitlin and Jonathan just for participating in this, being part of the first panel spiel. It takes a lot of time to build like this kind of talk. They definitely spend a lot of time behind the scenes putting it together, and we really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's a resource I feel like we've been talking about needing. There's many different ways we can put it out there, but now we have it in video form. I think a written form is another thing that we're looking at. But yeah, it's really great to have it, and great to have your voices as part of it. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
And thanks, chat. We'll see you over in the backstage channel in our Discord server, in the Protospiel Online Discord server. See you there.
Bye.
Bye.